Hey everybody, it's Torelic Tom, and welcome to a brand new series here on Splat Bros Crossing known as the Splat Bros Weapon Guide. Here we'll discuss the pros and cons of every weapon kit available in Splatoon 3 and what things you can do or add to them to help enhance your play or learn more about them before you try them yourself. Whether it's maybe to take your level of play to the next level, help you get started competitively, or if you just want to learn more about each weapon's roles in games, this is where we'll help you do it. There's a lot of weapons we have to cover here, so let's get started. And what better one to start us off with than the first weapon you find in a box? Returning as the introductory weapon for the third straight time, it's the Splattershot Jr. True to its role in the tutorial, the gun's the first step every player takes to being the freshest squid or octo on the block. And for some, it's still a gun many compete with to be the best. Because despite it being the beginner weapon, it's actually pretty viable in its own right. Being one of the lightweight weapons, it gives you a slight increase in your swimming and running speed than how you would normally move by 5 and 8.3% respectively. It has a very fast fire rate with great movement speed and low ink consumption that lets you spread ink very quickly, making it great for painting turf fast and providing great support to teammates in many situations. Each shot fired from it uses less than 0.5% of your ink tank, allowing players to fire over 250 shots before they would even need to reload at all. And due to it being the first weapon players receive, it has a unique trait of having an ink tank capacity of 110%, rather than 100, giving the players a little more ink to use compared to other weapons in the game. With this, players can continuously fire the gun for over 21 straight seconds before even having to reload, and going even longer if they have the Ink Saver main ability. You may not have recognized this right away as they got rid of the little baby bottle design they had in the last game. Little Junior's trying to grow up and be all like the other guys. However, despite it being a great inker, it's not a great fighter, as its range is relatively short compared to many other weapons in the game, just able to reach just past the third line in a practice arena. And even then, its accuracy is relatively poor, as its shots deviate and curve in the air like, you know when you put your thumb over the nozzle of a hose and it kind of like shoots everywhere? It's kind of like that, especially the longer you continuously fire or while you're in the air. It'll practically fire everywhere except right in front of it half the time, with its accuracy actually being its worst at the very edge of the range, so making attempts to hit your opponents at the farthest part of your range is extremely risky. So, in order to get kills with the main gun, its best chances are to flank opponents and surprise them by getting in close, and you use a burst of your quick firing shots to take them out before they can react, rather than charging on opponents head on. However, this doesn't mean Lil Jr. has no place in the meta at all. It just has different strengths that can help its bigger brothers and teammates in various ways. Its shots come out very quickly, coming out as quickly as 3 frames from standing and 10 frames out of your swimming form, with each shot having a base damage of 28 points, needing 4 shots in total to splat an opponent at full health, and having a minimum of 14 with fall-off damage. With its fast fire rate and movement, it can get its kills quickly if it's able to get in close and land its hits. Its widespreading shots make it great at enabling you to cover large areas of turf quickly, which is helpful in gaining or maintaining map control while building up your special attack. With having the best ink efficiency in the game, bar none, at 0.43% of your tank per shot, it allows the players to continuously turn and use their subs much more freely than other weapons without as much of a worry about running out of ink. With this, it's a great weapon to play alongside slayers and skirmish weapons like its big brother Splattershots, the .52 gals, dually weapons, and splatanas. Basically the weapons that struggle to ink for themselves to provide them space to maneuver and assist with kills while giving yourself and them a safe area to retreat to. Along with its great inking capabilities, it can ink its own feet quickly when it's in a skirmish, and then quickly retreat from it just as quickly to pester opponents or keep themselves alive to keep their special, as the player usually has a big responsibility with this weapon, as in many cases, it may be the main inking method for the team. And if you get a bit too over-aggressive and lose a fight, your team may quickly find themselves losing map control as their main inker is gone. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can I do that if so much outranges me in a fight? Well, to help combat weapons that do outrange Lil Jr., it has my personal favorite sub-weapon in the game, the classic Splat Bomb. A pyramid-shaped bomb that's a powerful sub-weapon that holds many uses in play. as it can be thrown in the air or rolled down on the ground, which is a dangerous weapon used against all kinds of opponents. The direct hit from the blast being an instant kill, dealing 180 points of damage and 30 points of damage off of splash hits, and only taking about 1 second to detonate once it stops rolling. This makes it a great weapon to check areas ahead of you before you advance, flush out opponents from an objective, scare backline weapons like chargers, stringers, and splatlings, lay down traps for opponents, punish bad super jumps near you, or be a final gift to an opponent before you go down, or, the most helpful case for the Junior, pressure opponents over a greater distance than what the gun can reach, because anyone being too close to it when it goes off is taking a one-way trip back to spawn. And like most bombs, it can be used for fast damage against certain objects, such as the Rainmaker Shield, Big Bubblers, Splash Walls, and Brella Shields, which can be used to take out unsuspecting enemies around them as the bomb detonates on contact with full effect. They also paint quite a bit in turf too, so use them in the final seconds of a turf war match to get one last area of ink painted that could be enough to push you over in a close game for a win, as they are allowed to detonate even after the game yells stop. But this powerful attack does come at a high price, as just one bomb alone uses up to 70% of your ink tank, so it needs to be used carefully to make sure you still have your shots in the tank if you're in critical situations. Though, the Splattershot Jr. is a bit of an exception to the rule here with its enlarged ink tank, as due to the gun using so little ink per shot, you're actually usually left with enough to continue to fight normally after using one at a full tank. And with the help of Inksaber's sub ability, this can lower the cost of Splat Bombs enough that the player can sometimes throw 2 Splat Bombs in just one use of the ink tank without having to reload at all, to have double the explosive power on the field. And when paired with a fully charged special that automatically refills your tank upon use, you can have access to up to 4 bombs fired at opponents, which has given the Junior the nickname basically of Splat Bomb, the gun. Thanks to this strategy, Splattershot Jr. players are known to fire bombs at enemies constantly to pin and pester opponents, as they're able to get them so quickly, and even without the extra bombs, the Splat Bomb paired with the Junior makes it a dangerous weapon to face sometimes, as the bomb can be used to corner opponents or cut off their escape routes to trap opponents between it and the gun, or your teammates if you're with them, who odds are have better killing power than you. Forcing them closer to the enemy or in an area they just don't want to be, it makes it so much easier to put fights in your favor. And if the enemy gets clipped with splash damage, this turns a usual 4-hit splat into a 3-hit splat to take opponents out faster, which turns this weapon from being just a supportive painter to helping them be an assistive killer. And maybe sometimes you may find yourself at the top of the team list with most kills and turf inked in a game. But it can also help out defensively too, or being a getaway maker for the front lines with its special Big Bubbler. If you're not sure what this is, you ever hear of the bubble shield from Halo? Well, it's basically like that. It's a machine that creates a large spherical barrier that blocks incoming enemy shots, subs, and certain specials from damaging you and any teammates that are inside your protective bubble. With the barrier able to tank up to over 1,500 points of damage, with attacks that hit the barrier taking 0.64 times the damage it normally takes. Plus, its HP can be increased as high as a whopping 1,800 if the player equips themselves with enough special power-up. And while it's protecting you, it also works as a secondary squid beacon that you and your teammates can jump to with relative safety, which your team can use to group up and attack together to push forward against the enemy. This makes it a great strategical weapon in various modes, as it basically turns into a small wall that the enemy team has to work harder to break through than usual. It's great to activate on or near a splat zone to prevent opponents from inking the zone without having to go in it, where they then have to deal with you, or other people that jumped in with you. And as they're running towards it, their shots won't be able to hit you until they're inside, but your shots against them are fair game. It can also be placed on the tower in tower control to protect the rider through various dangerous parts of its path, basically mainly the checkpoints and through areas where backlines and high damaging weapons can cover those areas easily. And in other modes where you're supporting an aggressive teammate or an enemy territory, this can be put around them to give them a quick escape route from shots if they're at low health, and then you can hold a position longer to buy time for the rest of your team to arrive to help push forward. Or it can be placed by some backline weapons to let them have some free range to fire to their heart's content without much worry about being splatted in return, protecting them from certain specials and bombs that try to displace them like a Trizuka or Tenna missiles, or to give them an advantage in a backliner tool. This makes it arguably one of the best bubbler weapons in the game, as it will practically have a bubbler ready to set up and make a safe area for the team at any time due to how fast and frequently it gets it. With it only needing 180 points to get, and even less with special charge up, this makes it easier to get compared to just about every other weapon that has this special, as others either cost more or struggle to ink that amount just as quickly as the Junior. And since Junior aims to avoid conflict most of the time anyway against most weapons, it'll have it ready for when the team is ready to make a coordinated push through a checkpoint or push through a choke point into enemy territory or into mid, with them able to approach together and safely, especially if it's coordinated with other specials like Crab Tank or Ink Vac to take the control and enemies down. However, it's not a shield that blocks everything. While it can block attack from enemies, enemies themselves can just walk straight through the barrier with no issue and then fight you normally. Plus, the barrier will take damage from weapons normally if they hit the generator in the center of the bubble or the launcher floating on top above it, making the bubbler shrink in size. Though really the bubbler does that anyway, as every second it's active, it loses 92 HP and slowly shrinks, and will dissipate when it eventually runs out, which is at about 16.5 seconds if it's untouched. And if anyone was jumping to the bubbler when it's destroyed, their super jump marker will be visible for all to see. And while it can be placed on tower, Nintendo did think of that and said, yeah, that's a little too unfair. So it dies faster on that. Yep, while riding the tower, the bubbler will lose double the HP while riding the tower, making it disappear even faster than usual, especially if it takes damage from enemies that can really hurt it, like Crab Tanks, Splatlings, Bows, the E-Leader. Absolutely demolish this thing if they can hit its weak points. This is especially true as well if opponents have the Object Shredder ability, as this increases the damage opponents can do to Bubbler by 10%, making it easier for them to take out. And it also can't be used everywhere, as the player must be on the ground in order to activate it with enough ground underneath it too. So it can't be placed on ledges, dropped from the air, or under tight spaces. Also, keep an eye on overhead when you pop it, as if there's a low enough ceiling or object over you when you launch it, it will get stuck on that and the shield will be much smaller than normal, with much less health too. Also be mindful of any moving platforms or objects like the tower or the spinning platforms on Museum de Alfonsino, as running into those instantly destroys it, no matter how much health it has. However, there is a strategy of using Bubbler to your advantage if an opponent is able to get inside, as the launcher in the center does have a hurt box, which you can use as a small shield to protect yourself from any damage and turn your gun on them to take them out. And while your Bubbler may be a bit weaker, it's still there and still works as a jump point and safe spot for your teammates. But there are other ways opponents can take the bubble out very quickly, especially with specials of their own. While it does protect you from ones like Crab Tank and Ink Vac, specials where the player themselves run into it like Reef Slider and Zipcaster aren't affected by Bubbler at all, and can use it to quickly charge in and blast you while you're dealing massive damage to the Bubbler and effectively wasting it. And while it does stop an Ultra Stop Hammer from damaging you if it's thrown at you, it does not stop an Ultra Stamp if an opponent is hammering away with it. Basically, if they're holding on to the special or it has the special enrapture the player, they can walk through it. Other specials are also unaffected by Bubbler as well, like the shockwaves from the Wave Breakers, the Killer Whale lasers, and Ink Strikes and Booyah Bombs explosions just go straight through it. But the biggest danger to look out for with the Bubbler is when you're trying to exit it. Remember earlier how I mentioned Splat Bombs deal major damage to Bubblers? That's because they detonate on contact with the shield. And it's not just Splat Bombs that do that either. And if you so much as stick your toe out of the bubble when the bomb goes off, you're dead. And many opponents will use their subs and specials against Bubbler, as it's one of the stronger and safer ways to deal with it, and can catch a player that may be a bit too aggressive trying to use it to turn the tides, or may not realize that the shield has shrunk down as much as it has. Last piece of advice for the Bubbler is it is not a panic button that can save your life if you're in trouble, as the Bubbler does take a short amount of time to launch and deploy, which may be too long if you're close to death, as the barrier doesn't pop up immediately. And if that happens, the Bubbler is left all alone for the opponent to just stroll in and start breaking it, which can prove ruinous to any of your teammates that might be jumping to it without realizing you died. But if you are able to play your cards right and use it in coordination with your teammates at the right times and places, it's an amazing special that can set up for the finishing blow on a team or put up a strong stand for your team to turn and push back, especially if used right with other specials and with teammates ready to move up and fight. For its best modes, Junior shines the best in Turf War, with its grading, coverage, and ability to get map control, with Bubbler being helpful to give your teammates a leg up to get back into the middle, the enemy base, or to defend your own base. I mean, it's not really an accident when you see the results screen. The Junior player was near the top with over 1,000 points of turf gains. It's kind of its job. It's also a decent choice for Splat Zones for its great and fast ink coverage, making it great at quickly capturing and contesting zones than many other weapons that try to do it. And using Bubbler can defend the zone to get a lead when you need it or to increase it. Or you could set it nearby an enemy controlled zone to gather your team and then attack together to take it back. Tower control is also a decent choice for it too, as it's great for getting those close range kills on the tower when you're riding it, with Splat Bomb scaring opponents on it, and Bubbler can be great at helpful to break through the checkpoints or to hold on to get those points you need to take the lead in a close match. And it could be used for Clan Blitz, mainly for painting and supporting a push, which is very important for the mode, and Bubbler can be placed around the baskets on offense and defense to either help you score or prevent the other team from getting in to score a lot. For recommended abilities to go with this weapon, I again want to bring up just how strong Ink Saver Sub can be, with this granting the use of up to 4 Splat Bombs if used in conjunction with your special to throw up to 4 bombs in close succession, which can lay down a lot of pressure on opponents, especially if you're able to use it in the safety of your bubble. And a bunch of these other abilities are also very helpful too in many other ways, helping get down turf or to just help you fight in a little better to support your teammates even better. And here's a list of some of its best stages. This isn't all the stages it can be good on, but here are ones where its strengths can really shine and help you play some of your best games, as the kit and the weapons you have on it are ones that can let you use your weapon to the best of its ability to help your team in the best way possible. But we're not quite done with the Splattershot Jr. just yet, as there's actually another set that gives you a different fighting style than the Splattershot Jr. original, making its return with the same Happy Star sticker and misleading name, but now unlocked at level 6, is the Custom Splattershot Jr. Yeah, sorry, unfortunately the custom in its name doesn't mean you can customize its stats or to get it to look however you want. It's basically just a regular Splattershot Jr. with a sticker, complete with a new sub and special. Its sub-weapon is the Torpedo, a unique bomb that's shaped like a fish, that when thrown at the enemy, changes shape and locks into an enemy that's near it. Once it locks and transforms, it flies at opponents and explodes on contact, with a direct hit dealing 60 points of damage. And upon contact, it breaks into several droplets that rain down around where it landed, dealing 12 points of damage for each one. And with how quickly they rain down and with how many there are, it can greatly damage or take an opponent out, or trap them in ink for you or your teammates to take out now that they're weakened. And it's not easy to get out of the large puddle it makes if you are hit by one, as all those droplets combined with the first explosion make a blast radius that's even as larger than a suction bomb's. When a torpedo locks onto a target, both the thrower and target know they're being targeted thanks to a dash, circle, and arrow around the target's feet showing them which way it's coming from. But if there are no enemies nearby or it touches the surface before it can transform when one is thrown, it won't transform and will just have a much smaller explosion with no droplets at all. But even this has its uses, as this can work as a small fast attack that can deal 60 damage but doesn't launch any of the droplets, so unfortunately you have to deal with just that. This makes close-up fighting so much easier for the Custom Junior, as it can be used in many ways, like poking opponents with a fast 60 damage, which then makes so you only need 2 shots to splat an opponent rather than 4. But can also be used as a good distraction tool against your opponents, as they'll have to worry about this flying fish soaring in at them, and if they turn to confront that, you and your teammates could shoot them down without having to worry being shot back. They also are much better than Splat Bombs at checking ahead of you if an area is unsafe, as unlike a Splat Bomb, this will actually tell you if someone is there or not, rather than having to see if someone runs away or is hiding just outside of the bomb's blast radius. And with it being so in your face when it locks onto a target, this is the ultimate pester tool of the backline weapons, especially chargers and stringers, as to deal with them, they either have to run away from them, or waste their perfectly good charge shot to get rid of it, or have to take a smaller shot to take it out and start over. That, or they may have to try and tank the shot, and then they have to surround themselves with enemy ink. But this does lead to the weapon's drawbacks. It does cost less than a Splat Bomb to use, only using 60% of your ink tank instead of 70%. But unlike other sub-weapons, even if you have the ink to make another one, you can't fire another one until the first one is either destroyed or hits its target. Oh yeah, I guess I should kind of go into that. The biggest drawback with this weapon is that it's the only bomb that can be destroyed by your opponents, with it only needing to take 20 points of damage to be rendered useless, which is just about any attack anyone can deal. An uncharged charger shot, uncharged bow, even a small shot or two from a splatling will just take it out. And while it does target enemies and start chasing them, it only hones in on where the opponent was standing when it was locked onto them. So if they run away from its landing zone or duck behind a wall, the torp will just crash into where they were instead of actually chasing where they were going. But these drawbacks can be used to play some major mind games with opponents. As if you throw them at the opponent, you basically throw a choice at them. Them either having to fight you directly and try and take the hit from the bomb without taking too many hits from you and hopefully survive it, or they could try and take the bomb out fast enough to turn and then try and take you or your teammate out. Or they have to take option C and just retreat entirely. So this can be used to help teammates or even yourself win fights, albeit a bit riskier compared to B Junior, because you still have to get in close to hit them with your gun, and we all kind of established that's not really great. And C Junior doesn't improve any of the gun shots that regular Junior has either. But it's a good weapon to discombobulate opponents and help teammates either by distracting their enemies that they're fighting or other opponents looking to make it a 2v2 or 3v2. And it even works as a final turf war attack if you're able to hit an opponent in the final seconds, as it covers a lot of ground in your ink. So find the best way you can support your teammates, either by drawing attention away from your skirmisher or distracting the backliners to let you get in and get close to take them down. Though, if you're still feeling like you needed some help finding your opponents that are troubling you and your teammates, well then, it's time to crash some waves, dude, with the Wave Breaker. A cone-shaped device with a big ball that can be thrown out onto the field, and upon landing, releases a quick burst of point sensor waves that can tell you and your team where anyone near it is for a brief second. And then, the ball will bounce in the cone, releasing 3 slow-moving shockwaves that damage opponents they make contact with by 45 points. Along with the damage, they'll be marked as if they were hit by a point sensor sub for 7 seconds, revealing their position on the map and on the field for you and your teammates. And if all 3 waves hit an opponent in succession, or if they're damaged enough when 1 or 2 of them hit, that will take them out as if they got splatted by a gun. And its shockwaves can also go all sorts of places, even in some you wouldn't expect, like up on walls. Opponents are able to avoid the shockwaves and their effects, though, simply by hopping over them. And if they are damaged by a shockwave, they can't be hurt by the same one again if they run into it again while they're retreating. Also, like the Bubbler, though, the Wavebreaker's impact can be cut short by opponents attacking it. However, it only has 400 HP instead of over 1,000, and takes damage with certain multipliers depending on the weapon used to hit it. And once it's out of HP, like the Bubbler, it's gone. Also, like Big Bubbler, you also have to be a bit careful where exactly you place it, as if it's hit by a moving wall like the tower, or moving walls in museum or platforms like in Lumera, it's instantly destroyed regardless of its health. However, like the Bubbler too, its hurt box can be used as a short-range shield for the player to use if an opponent is attacking them. And believe me, when it's placed in the middle of a wild battle, this can catch a lot of opponents off guard, as they're usually not watching their footing while in a fight with an opponent, which can help teammates keep track of them in a fight when they dive in ink, or they may need less shots to take them out as their opponent's already injured. Or it can maybe just sometimes take them out altogether if the wave hits them after their opponent took a few shots. This also is a pain for enemies that like to shark and hide, as this can either mark them or ruin their stealth plan to make them have to jump out of their ink to avoid the waves or run away in order to avoid detection. And its hurt box can be used as a small shield that can be placed on things like the tower to defend the rider, while also marking enemies that try to get on the tower to take you out. Though this is a bit risky, as placing it on the tower can also take away a small area you could be standing on to avoid attacks, especially from bombs. Though, if you really need to, you can also throw it at people to shove them off objectives.
I'm not letting them get close to you. Did you throw Did you see that? Did you see How did you fall off the water?
Not really sure I'd recommend this as an actual technique, but hey, sometimes it can. Despite popular belief though, Special Power-Up does not increase the Wave Breaker's health. Instead, it will increase the travel distance of the shockwaves to reach further. However, they don't travel faster. They still go the same speed that they normally do. And due to it also being an object, it is susceptible to more damage from attacks if opponents have Object Shredder. So keep an eye out for opponents that have it on the map. With this, the Custom Junior along with the Torpedoes make it a great combo set for finding enemies and preventing Sharkers and sneak attacks from happening on them, as if the Wave Breaker doesn't find the people, odds are the Torpedo will, or vice versa. Especially if opponents move in to try and destroy it. And remember that popping your special does completely refill your ink tank, so it's a good way to keep up your assault on the enemy team. And with a special and sub that's all about locating enemy members, this is actually an applicable weapon for players looking to get into competitive play, as it teaches them support and can give them up the role of painting for their teammates while also learning callouts and communication tools to let their teammates know where an opponent is, then assist them when a teammate moves in on that information. And with it only costing 190 points to get, which definitely isn't hard for a junior to rack up, you'll have plenty of chances to use it in practice. For its best modes, once again, Turf is its bread and butter, mainly for just how good that gun is at painting. And you'll probably find more use out of Wave Breaker here than you did with Bubbler on V Junior to find enemies and mark them on the map for your teammates to find the enemy. Splat Zones is a decent mode for it too, as the gun has great ink coverage to get in contests for the zone, and you can use Torps and Wave Breaker to find enemies hiding near it. Or just throw it out in a firefight to get some kills and make it easier for your team to take them out. Tower's an alright choice too, as Torpedo can distract and damage people riding the tower, or pester some backliners trying to snipe your teammates at the checkpoints, and Paint is always helpful to have around the tower. And Clams again is okay too, as once again, Paint on the ground is very important for this mode, and you can use the Torps and Wave Breaker to kind of check ahead to see if you have any people hiding around corners, and if it's safe for you and the team to go ahead and make a basket. For abilities for this one, I want to make good suggestions to Bomb Defense Up DX and Object Shredder. As for a weapon where you may be being stealthy and trying to avoid some long-range attacks of bombs, this is helpful to help keep yourself alive or survive some splash damage from bombs and inkjet shots. As for Object Shredder, if you are going to be dealing with certain objectives and enemy objects like the Rainmaker Shield, Splash Walls, or Big Bubblers, this weapon needs all the help it can get to take them down, as you don't deal a ton of damage with the gun, so any multiplier to make it stronger against them is always welcome. For its best stages, due to it having Torpedo and Wave Breaker, stages with a lot of walls and being stealthy is where this weapon shines, as you can fire torps around them to search for opponents, and the shockwaves from the Wave Breaker can reach enemies in areas that they really won't expect. So it's a way you can be sneaky while preventing opponents from sneaking up on you. And that'll do it for this first chapter of the Weapons Guide. Hope you all learned something new about these early weapons you got, and maybe have a new outlook on them being more than just the beginner weapon. If you enjoy what you saw, stick around and be ready for more, as more episodes will be on the way soon about other weapons in this game. Thanks for watching again. If there's anything we missed or may have gotten wrong, feel free to let us know down in the comments below. Heck, for all we know, Nintendo could suddenly drop other weapons balancing patch after this video, and suddenly, none of these packs are A. Who knows? Thanks for watching again, everyone, and hope to see you all down the line for more weapons.